Welcome back to the Long Way Back podcast. I'm your host, Timmy Long, and today I'm on my own. So we have a very interesting guest here with us today, and his name is Ollie O'Regan. My first introduction to Ollie was at an ayahuasca retreat, remember?
I do indeed.
So I think we were in the Wicklow Mountains.
That's, beautiful location.
It was, and I met you for the first time that time. That ayahuasca retreat was completely different to what I had experienced before. It was a bit different for me. That was your first one, was it?
It was my first one with
that
group. Yeah.
Yeah, but we met each other there, and afterwards kind of crossed each other's paths in different ways. And Tony mentioned just there before we came on that he'd mentioned your name to me a while back again. So to me, you should get on Ollie O'Regan, and here we are. We're
Thanks
sitting
so
here
much
today. So it's just the way things roll and happen. So a nice one for popping up.
Thanks.
I'm looking forward to the chat. So do you want to give people a little bit of a background where you're from, Ollie, and how it was growing up, and then we can move into what we're really here for.
Perfect. So I grew up in Skibbereen, down in West Cork. Suppose be described as a small town, like kind of in the heartland of West Cork, so you've plenty of countryside around it. I'm the eldest of 4 boys, which my mother would always say was a bit of a challenge, raising 4 boys. But no, her and dad done a fantastic job, and I suppose it's now with a bit of life experience and a bit of wisdom, I can look back and appreciate and recognise what it was to have, loving parents and just a good foundation, Now we worked hard, and nothing was taken for granted or anything like that. So we were taught the value of things as well, and what it is to earn something by getting out and putting the best foot forward. Even
the insight that you have looking back at your life, knowing that your parents done the best thing, the best they could with the 4 of you, and that's a big deal, even to have that awareness, today in life.
Big time. And I suppose it's just when you how would I put it? Like it's just kind of become a natural state of being, I suppose, And I think that if your natural state of being is kind of where you've worked to present your best self to the world, then someone somewhere or something has done, and I had I suppose, that's what I'm getting at, is like I had the foundations from a young age to ensure that was kind of the outcome, I suppose, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
And just from, I've been lucky enough to have travelled abroad and lived away for over the years and stuff, and people would say it to you, you might do something that I would consider, absolutely no skin off my back to do it.
Yeah.
But to someone else that meant the world, and there was a girl I met, it's over 10 years ago now, but we met in Australia, and they were from West Cork as well, and we had a few mutual acquaintances and friends. And I met her years later out in Skibbereen, and she came up and she said, I just want to thank you for the way you are in Australia. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, no, you really made us feel welcome in that hostel, and we knew nobody. But yeah, it's just who I am, like, it's just the way I am, like,
fair play. That shows a lot from your own parents.
It is actually like I got chatting. I went out Saturday evening, just gone to catch up with a couple of old friends, and went into one of the quieter bars and was walking back out, and the security guard held the door, and I said, "Jesus," I said, "fair play." I said, "That's absolute gentleman." He said, "Sure, it costs nothing." And I was like, you're spot on, like, and it costs nothing to just, even flash a smile to someone there someday if you see him looking down, things like that.
Yeah.
Because you never know, that might be the only smile they see that day.
You just brought something up for me there today. I was sitting here today, just on my own, and I think I was answering a message on Instagram or something like that. I rarely do that now, to be honest. I'm not great with social media, and Tony will tell you that. But there was a video came up. The way these videos popped up, and this video caught my eye, and it was a soccer player, and they were in the middle of a match, and this footballer just fell to the ground. And died on the field, and it just says in big writing above it, look at every moment in life as it's your last, because you just don't know when you'll fall like this man. And I actually got quite emotional, and because to see something like that, 1 minute you're looking at somebody with a big smile in their face, having a chat with the referee, and the next minute the referee walks off and he turns around and he's dead within in 5 to 10 seconds, like, and it kind of just puts life into one perspective, like, the way we're either mourning or complaining about something or one thing or another in life, whether someone's doing something the right way or the wrong way, we're doing, or whether it's work related, or whether it's the kids, or whether it's the house, or whether it's the dog, or whether it doesn't matter, neighbour, it doesn't matter what it may be. We get so caught up in the stuff that they're not relevant, like, instead of just being in the moment and just kind of moving through stuff. And I wish I could live my life like that all day and every day, but that takes a lot of work, doesn't it?
It's interesting you asked that question, because I couldn't help but wonder as you were explaining that video to me. Do you think that's possible to actually? Or sorry, I'll backtrack a small bit. I suppose the question I'm wondering is, from your perspective, if, say, in an ideal world, right was right and people had enough of everything, do you think that it'd be easier to be more in that state of presence, because you're not worrying about, is there money coming in for the rent, or whether it be, can I afford to repair the car? If everyone just kind of had enough on an even playing field, to an extent, but you still have to get up and do your graft.
I think it probably would be.
Yeah.
I do really think it probably would be, because it's like when you're living next to somebody who has a nice car, it's like, do you ever hear the saying, keeping up with the Joneses?
I have, yeah.
That's the reality of the way a lot of the people in the world think today, about, we're so caught up in the materialistic world and materialistic things and work. And I said this only recently, it's like we're always running and racing to get to the next place, to the next thing, instead of just being able to sit and appreciate what we have. And it's not till we actually sit and look at what we have instead of what we don't have, we can really be appreciative of life and the people within our lives, and what we have to make us feel comfortable in our lives, like a roof over our heads, clean water coming out of the tap, heat coming out of the rads in the house. We're fucking probably in the 1% of people on the planet, like, that are so fortunate to have all these things, like, pretty easily. There's a lot of people out there who don't have fresh water, they don't have roofs over their heads and things like that. And it just gets me thinking all the time, and I do try when I find myself not liking a situation or what I'm being given in life, to kind of step back and say, whoa, what are you doing here? And just pull it back and just leave it flow. And what's for you will, as the saying goes, what's for you won't pass you, like.
It's 100% true.
Do you know what I mean? So I'll be there, and we're after getting caught up in a completely different conversation. We kind of lost track there in relation to you and where you are growing up. So was school something that you enjoyed growing up, Ollie?
I would maybe enjoyed might be too enthusiastic word to use, but I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it, but I did go to school with lads who absolutely detested being there, like, and they couldn't wait to finish. And some of them, like, as soon as they hit 16, they went off and got an apprenticeship because it just wasn't for them. And I think from my own experiences and having learned about different teaching methodologies that are used in different parts of the world, and there is some of them being implemented here, I definitely think just the way education is approached here is kind of counterproductive to the capabilities of different individuals, because you could have an individual who might be an absolute brain box around cars or mechanics or something like that, but they have no interest in learning about English and poetry and stuff. And that's not to knock the English and the poetry, but why not utilize the interest and then harness that to give that individual a platform to really pursue a passion? And I think that's a big thing I see in society around me today, is there's so many people stuck in positions that they don't want to be in, instead of maybe pursuing a passion. And I think there's I'm probably kind of paraphrasing, but it's like, if you're doing something you love, you're not working. You know, and I call myself quite fortunate to have worked over the years to put myself in a position where I was answerable only to myself. You know, and
most people go through their lives working in a job that they don't love, and they don't leave that job because there's financial fears, and not just financial fears. Maybe there's self-esteem fears. Maybe there's confidence there, lack of confidence that they're actually able to do what they. But what I've noticed from the people that I know in my life who've had fear around moving on to something that they enjoy doing, was they always done really, really well and became very successful in it. But the initial bit of fear, they just needed to be kind of pushed and kept being pushed until they actually made a decision to move on, or actually realise that they're actually good at what they're doing. You know, it takes that. Some people don't get to that point, though. They kind of get caught up in a job or that is completely not for them, because I believe that there's something for everybody.
I'd 100% agree
with
that.
There's some good job or sport. We're all brilliant at one thing, or maybe two, or maybe countless things. You know, if we really put our mind to it. You know, I'm a practical learner. I love working with my hands. Keeps me busy. You know, I'm not a guy who would like sitting down at an office all day long. I'd fucking go completely insane. You know, and I don't just say that. I've tried it. You know, I've tried it, and I just love walking around, talking, getting the work done, having something to push for, having a goal to get, and getting there and finishing a job and say, oh, do you know?
That feeling of satisfaction.
I get a great feeling of it, yeah. Do you know?
Yeah.
Can you relate to that?
Yeah, big time. But you were talking about fear there, and something I experienced in my own journey was actually the fear of succeeding, which I'd never really heard anyone, like, everyone talks about fear of failure, but that's only something you've kind of manifested in your own mind, because how do you know you're going to fail if you're not going to try it? But it's taking that next leap to maybe diversify the business or whatever the case may be, in terms of, like, you might be going, you know, it's time to expand, like you've filled one cavity or whatever, you know, it's time to branch out a bit. But it's that fear of, like, geez, can I handle this almost? You know, can I handle the extra lash of clients coming my way, or the extra workload that's going to come with making more, you know, going into a higher volume of production, whatever the case may be. And it's a very different kind of, for me, it was a very different side of fear, because it was almost like knowing your capabilities, but kind of, can I push them to the next level? And I suppose it's like, you know, someone who's training in high intensity sport or something, and they want to get to they want to maybe go from amateur to pro, and they know they can do it, but there's also this thing like, but am I ready for everything else that comes with it?
I think there's a process to that too. There's all the different levels of emotion from being here, like, say, from here to getting to the place of success. Like, there's the emotions of, there's stress, there's anxiety, there's fear, there's the unknown. All these different things come up, but they're part of the whole process as well. You can't get, and I've mentioned this before, you can't get from somebody that's working a 9-to-5 job. No, and there's not wrong with a 9-to-5 job. It's great if you're somebody that's happy there. There's nothing stopping anybody from going from there to starting their own business and succeeding only those emotions. You know, you ever hear the saying, like, you're always going to hit a wall. You'll always hit a hurdle in business.
Yeah.
But, like, is that the hurdle that's going to stop you? Or are you just going to keep going? You have to understand that there will be hurdles and you will stop and you will hit walls, but you're going to have to pick yourself back up as well.
Absolutely.
And move back over them and keep going. And it's after those walls and hurdles that you hit, you start realizing, whoa, we're actually making progress here. We're actually making a profit this month, or, you know. So there's a lot to be learned from business, but not just from a business aspect, but also a personal aspect about yourself and what you're capable of doing, or what works for you, and how you get really stressed and how you're going to manage with the stress and the anxiety around stuff and the fear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It makes total sense.
So school was kind of...
School was grand. Like, I mean, I suppose, whatever, done very well up to junior cert, and then got curious about weed and started smoking weed, and probably did kind of fall into the whole stereotypical element of, like, oh, you know, not studying and stuff like that. But again, I'd now pose the question, is that because it was almost like a preconditioning mindset that was portrayed, you know, you smoke weed, you're going to be lazy. But I always worked, you know, when I moved to Cork then, and I'm jumping forward a small bit, but so I would say 15, 16, tried a bit of weed, liked it, enjoyed it, got in trouble at home and stuff, you know, but again, that was...
What did it do for you at that age? What did weed do for you?
I just liked the feeling. I liked that fuzziness, that warmth that came with it, and I was in good company.
Yeah.
You know, I was very lucky. Like, the first few people I had to smoke with were friends, like, you know.
I had a completely different experience. Like, I used to fucking get very paranoid. You know, I don't know, was I probably smoking too much, because from where I came from, like, you'd think the more you smoked, the more people would look up to you, you were more the man. Okay, he's smoking, you know, and you smoke. And I had fucking experiences on weed when I was younger like that. I said, I'm never again going touching this stuff. Like, but I'd always go back and use it when I was on other drugs, so the weed would bring me down a little bit when I was on drugs like cocaine or crack or anything like that, where it would bring me down a little bit, down a level, because I'd be up here and the weed and the prescribed meds would kind of bring me a little bit down.
It's kind of back to a bit closer to the base level.
I get very fucking paranoid. Like.
But I still get paranoid there some days, man. Like, and it's funny, and it's a big thing why I would like to see it safely accessible. But I enjoy all those. I suppose they're kind of like different states of mind. And I suppose I'm fortunate that I can ground myself in the moment and go, look, you're breathing, you're alive.
Yeah.
You know, everything else is fine. You know, you're grand, this will pass, kind of thing. If it does get a bit too heavy. And then there's sometimes where, like, if it's a very specific strain, like, I can almost go back to being like 15, especially walking downtown there sometimes, man, like, you know, and I know that out of the 100, 200 people I might pass, maybe one person is actually give me a little bit more attention than everyone else. But it doesn't matter, like, no, everyone's got their own lives going on. I'm like, what? Who cares? Like,
I know, like,
I go into the shop there and I'm looking, I'm like, they're all watching me. I'm like, come on, man, you're a grown man, like, nobody's watching you. Who cares? And if they are, so what? Like, you're doing no harm to anyone.
Yeah,
like,
people are usually more interested in what's going on in their own lives, like, because they're dealing with their own shit. Yeah. But that's what it can do. You know, like, they
I can understand how that can. I like, you know, it's fine for me to laugh and joke about it. I have the comprehension to understand the facets of it, but I can understand how that could be very overwhelming and potentially traumatic for someone that doesn't suit. Like,
do you think in this country we don't understand weed enough? And what I mean by that now, and I want to just kind of explain it a little bit, is when I say enough, we tend to make a joint or whatever, or whatever people smoke, and put in maybe enough or too much or too little weed. But then it's like we have to nearly smoke the whole fucking thing, or just or a half of it. And I was there one day, then I was watching the Joe Rogan show, and they were talking about weed, and he was talking about how I smoke weed, how he smokes weed, and he said, like, all I fucking do is have maybe 2-3 pulls and pass it on to someone else, and I get a nice little. And that made a lot of sense to me. Like, he's getting 2 or 3 pulls. He's not fucking excessively pulling on it. Where he's stoned out of his head is probably too much of a bang for him. Do you think there's a right way or a wrong way to smoke weed?
I think it would be very kind of individual thing to an extent, but when I first started, it was definitely like the
excessive kind of.
Well, a bit, but I suppose more the reason for it was centered around that whole thing. Like, when you're young and you're told not to do something, you want to do it even more, and there was never any, what I found, like, sensible justification. It was all this essentially propaganda that was 40, 50 years old now, like, and not backed by any real valid science or anything like that. But what I've come to learn over the years is approach it with respect and understanding that this is a plant that has been around for thousands and thousands of years. I suppose to get into a slightly deeper level of it, like, it has a consciousness, and I would always have felt it was like more of a feminine presence. So, but to kind of come back to your question, there is definitely a massive lack of knowledge. And something I've even only learned in the last few years, and all the years I've been smoking weed, is that there's other smaller compounds that play a massive role in what that specific strain does and how it can either benefit someone or actually be hindersome, if someone's using it to treat a specific condition or something like that. And that's, I think, where a lot of the issue is lack of knowledge and education around it, because unfortunately even doctors in the Western world, it's not even in their medical journals.
Yeah.
So, like, it's even, and hopefully in the very near future, like, it will become more viewed with the light for the potential it has to help heal, to invoke healing, basically.
And when you say healing, in what aspects of healing do you mean mental health or physical?
A lot of aspects, and that's not to just kind of be flippant about answering your question. It's more like, again, it comes back to what the individual is using it for. Like, I use it for a little bit sometimes. Like, I can struggle with getting to sleep, and even I noticed that when I was 14, 15, there'd be nights I'd be just lying awake going, what the hell is this about? Like, why am I awake? And then freaking out, coming into 3 and 4 in the morning, that I was going to miss school, or I'd be too tired to be productive in school. So it was almost feeding into itself in a vicious cycle then. And I've taken knocks and bumps over the years, like falls off horses and, slipping on ice or whatever the case may be. So I do have a bit of neck and back pain, and without question, it helps with all of that.
It's powerful, yeah.
But then there's other people I know who have, stuff from like epilepsy, Parkinson's, MS, cancer, and they've tried all the other avenues. They weren't successful, and they've utilized some cannabis, and it has changed people's lives. And I think for that reason alone, if there's, and something that's natural, and if it's produced correctly, give people the opportunity to utilize it if they so want to.
Do you think we're far away from that happening in this country?
No, I really don't. I know people have said, Ollie, yeah, but you said that 10 years ago. No, I think right now, like I said, there's far too many people who have just had enough of being in pain or being stricken with a condition, and they've heard stories of people abroad that can get safe access to good quality, and their conditions are, diminishing or whatever. And another thing I feel is, you could have someone who's really who maybe say was really proactive in their life, and because whatever ailment that they might have been afflicted with, they're now no longer kind of an active member of society where they might once were. And I think being social creatures by nature, you know, I think that must be very, I don't know, for lack of better wording, a person may feel robbed because, you know, their back's in pain and they can only, the furthest they can go is from the bedroom downstairs. You know, they can't leave the house because they run the risk of, you know, getting into a spasm or something like that. But if they can utilize something that they know is going to reduce that level down to 2, they might be able to go out and work part-time a couple of days a week, or they might be able to take a course that they were interested in. I just think it opens up doors for people again. That
gives them a bit of purpose.
Yeah. And I think
that's very important.
100%. Yeah.
And I don't think any law should stop anybody from feeling like they still have a bit of purpose, considering they're gone from the bed where they feel like that they've no purpose anymore and they're no good to anybody, financially or physically. And no, after maybe smoking a bit of cannabis or whatever way, or the other ways of using it, they now feel that they can get up and be a little bit constructive within the family home, or maybe go and make a few quid and bring it into the family home.
Yeah,
you know, it gives them a real sense of purpose again, and that also helps people with mental health on a different level outside of the physical aspect of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like we look at things like that in not just this country, we look at the negative aspects of it, where there's drugs and there's dealing in drugs and this and that. But we need to look at the real strengths, the real good points of things like that, and how it can really benefit people's lives. And that's what we need to look at, you know. Now, do I agree with maybe young people smoking cannabis and the damage that it can cause to their development, you know, of their minds and stuff, if they're excessively smoking weed? Because I've came across a lot of people in the past, and still, who go into a lot of psychosis because of the amounts of weed that they're smoking, and that's because there's a lack of knowledge in this country around it. There's no explanation of how much you should. Still to this day, I don't think there's a methodology of how much to smoke and how frequently to smoke to be in a considered nice, mellow kind of buzz, if that's what you're looking for.
But still be in a level of coherence that you're...
Exactly. Where it's not affecting you mentally.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's another thing like that has been, because of the stigma that was created, you know, in like America here and in other countries, is people have forgotten that it's a medicine.
Yeah.
You know, and you said it there, like about the other ways of utilizing it. Like, it's not all just about smoking. Even my partner, she was looking up a little while ago. I think it was in China. They used to infuse it with like an oil or in milk, because you need a fatty substance to help to break down the cannabinoids and the terpenes. And then they just wrap this in a cloth and soak it. And for women with menstrual pain, they just like use it as a wrap.
No way.
Yeah, so the cannabinoids and the compounds actually soak through the skin, but there was no risk of them getting high. Whoa. So like there's all these other, you know, I've heard of, in America they've got slow release patches for people that were on, say, like oxycodone or morphine.
They're using the cannabinoids.
They're using slow release THC patches, and they said that, and I've heard it like from close friends telling me. Like,
are they really beneficial?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before. Yeah. Like, my wife is inside, uses heat patches because of her back, because her work is very physical. No, I'm not going to fucking introduce her to THC hot packs. No, but because she can manage it. What we're using now for something like that at the moment is yoga and a bit of Pilates, because there's no real damage. It's just excessive kind of overdoing it.
Okay,
and we're kind of, but what
you're
talking about,
strength back into the muscle is what she's working.
What you're talking about is completely different. Where it's people who are really
chronic pain sufferers, like, you know, long-term chronic pain sufferers. But actually, I suppose another way that cannabis can be utilized in things like yoga, Pilates, people going to the gym to train. I know people that they've found that sweet spot, You know, instead of overdoing it, they found this sweet spot, and they said the levels of, I suppose, intensity that they can push themselves to, because they just put themselves in this zone. You know, and they said they can kind of get there, but they said the cannabis is like a little extra tool.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and I think that's another way. Another thing it needs to be looked at is like it's a tool. It's not a cure all. It's just another tool that was put in this earth to benefit mankind. You know, and it's unfortunately just been kind of suppressed and forgotten.
In some states in the US, there actually are cannabis farms the size of Cork City, Cork City Centre. They're it's a massive thing in the US at the moment. Is cannabis, and it's, you can buy it in shops and stuff. You don't have to be prescribed it. You can just go in and buy it. You don't have to be prescribed it by a doctor or anything over there, do you, Ollie? Or is it?
It would depend. Like, a lot of them now would just have dispensaries where you go in, you sign up as a member, but the people would have a vast knowledge, and they would have affiliations with doctors. So if I went in and I said, look, I just enjoy the plant, and
you can smoke away.
Yeah. But then if someone who is like completely novice, they can go in and they can actually, like, they'll arrange an appointment. Because I was in Canada years ago, and it was part of the requirement. You'd either book in for a day where you do a face-to-face consultation, or else they try and arrange a Skype call with a doctor, and you just give a little bit of a breakdown. And
can you imagine doing that with a young person today, giving them the knowledge, the breaking it down?
And you'd have a whole different next generation and I really believe, like, well-rounded, robust, competent adults, like individuals who just, like, you know, going back to what you said earlier about the fear of you know, keep you up with the Joneses and all that stuff. I actually think a lot of that would be diminished, because you just have people who are authentic and going, yeah, I'm me. And that's all I need to be. Like, I'm just solid in that and standing into the power of that.
Yeah.
And hopefully then that becomes the ripple effect.
Yeah.
You know, so 2 or 3 generations down, you just have, like, and hopefully maybe someday, like, things like, you know, that people were affected by mental health conditions like anxiety, that they might actually become a thing of the past.
They fizzle. Do you think?
You know?
I think within the last maybe 100 years, I don't think anything before that. No, they had different issues because life was tough and it was very difficult to feed people and stuff. Do you think they had the anxieties and fears that we have today?
I don't think so, because and I could be completely wrong, but just, I think there was so much going on, you know, in the sense that, like, they'd have to get out, they'd have to go to work, but it was a different. I think like, I don't know, man. Like, even myself and my brothers would always say, like, they don't build them like they built my dad.
Oh.
You know, and he was an amazing man.
We say that about our grandmothers as well.
Yeah. You know, they don't build them like they used to. Like, no. they were tough stuff. They were really tough. They were tough stuff. Yeah. But that man, like, and he had a tough fucking life, man. Yeah. You know, horrible school life, home life wasn't the greatest either. But the love and compassion that man possessed. Like, and I'm actually like, every time I think about him, like, I get hit with a wave of emotion. Like,
I can feel it across the room here.
Because, like, without him, I wouldn't be the man I am today.
Is your dad still alive?
No.
Oh, sorry.
That's kind of part of why I got into what I'm doing now around, you know, learning about cannabis and CBD and things.
Tell us, what's your goal, Ollie? What's your, like, I know we're kind of jumping back and forth, but I think it's just the flow of the conversation is good.
Yeah.
And we're getting to where we need to be. Tell us what your goal is around cannabis, like, or what you want to be teaching people, and maybe someday what you can see your part in the cannabis kind of industry being.
I suppose firstly would be undertaking a lot more research myself. And right now that would probably mean trying to do a distant learning course. I know there's one in Colorado that is world recognized now. So it'd probably first undertaking something like that to actually get, like, a sufficient qualification in and around kind of all things cannabis, and then working towards setting up farms and processing plants. Now, again, this is a big vision, but, you know, but it means collaborating with other like minds and getting people with, you know, I don't know anything about chemistry, you know, so I need lab technicians who know how to utilize certain compounds like CO2 for extracting, giving people jobs as bud tenders to make sure that you've got the best quality looking product that you produce. Same with growers. And then in the long run, having doctors educated on how to utilize things like cannabis and other plant medicine.
And how to distribute it to
and customers. I suppose something like a lot of people who are maybe a little bit in the dark around cannabis, they're like, oh, but you know, you can't be, it's not about that. It's actually maybe working towards a place in time where we have plant medicine and allopathic medicine running in tandem. So instead of having to be on...
When you say allopathic, you mean...
Pharmaceutical. Yeah. So being, instead of having to take 4 tablets a day for whatever the reason might be, that you only need to take 1, and then you can utilize a little bit of cannabis or something else to kind of help keep the body in that.
And the cannabis doesn't even have to be smoked. It can be a droplet into the mouth.
Into food. Like, I mean, you can make some amazing food, and really tasty stuff, and you wouldn't even know that there's... And that's the great thing about using food and tinctures, is you can get the dosage right. So someone can start off really small, and if they feel they need to build up, they can start incrementally building up. But when they hit a point where, no, I don't like this, okay, you just bring it back down a notch. So it's a lot more control.
You'd nearly what my head is thinking, like, you'd be titrating up until you find the right kind of dosage of cannabis that is the sweet spot for you
100%,
and helps you at what level.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty much like a child or an adult titrating on an ADHD med or something.
But it comes back to, I suppose, just having that perspective of it, that it's medicine.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's not something that you overdo.
Yeah.
Because it's
no, unless you like send yourself to that state of consciousness, there's nothing wrong with that either. You know, if you can handle it. But like we've all heard the video where the guy rings up 911 because he thinks he's dying because he's eating too many brownies. Like, you know, it's just having that knowledge.
I'd say there's have to be a lot of them videos, them phone calls.
I was actually talking to a gentleman recently who is a paramedic, and he was saying he's got a couple of those calls, you know, but he said the problem is, he said, unfortunately, because the guards aren't trained or versed in it, he said they kind of have this common approach of coming in a bit heavy-handed, I know, you know. Whereas he said, like, sometimes all these people probably just need is a hug and be told you'll be fine in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
You know, so it's and maybe that would be something I'd like to see with the goal with the cannabis thing is people trained, you know, really well trained around mental health and harm reduction and stuff. So if you have some, or even God forbid, someone has a pack of cookies at home and their kid gets into it, you know, that you have a team of people, or you have someone that you can call and going, how am I going to deal with the child? You know? Is
there a way to come, do you know the way you've naloxone? No, not naloxone, you have these different antidotes for people who are ODing and heroin.
Yeah.
Is there something to take you down off a really high cannabis kind of high as well? Because God knows in the past I have been in situations where I would have gave my left arm to come because I've been kind of getting a ghosty, like I've been really white, getting cold because I'm after smoking probably too much hash or weed back in the, that's been a long time ago now, but is there
usually this happens when the blood sugar.
Is it? Yeah. Is there anything that can take you back down off then, Tony?
Just consuming some like fruit or sugar.
Fruit, yeah, like
it won't be instantaneous, but it definitely helps.
Do you know what we were always told when we were growing up? Do you know, when you're really fucking stoned in ecstasy, MDMA, drink some orange juice, and for some reason, like the orange juice will take you down. It'll bring you down from.
I have heard that before.
I don't know whether it's true or not.
There's mushrooms as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it's fascinating stuff. Well, like the reason I asked is because I know some people can get into a really fucking stoned place with cannabis, and like if there was a way that they could bring themselves back a little bit.
Actually, I don't know why it took me so long to click it.
Yeah.
CBD helps.
CBD.
And that I suppose as well is a thing where a lot of cannabis nowadays is bred to have high THC, and why it can cause problems with people, like mental problems. But I suppose back in whatever, the 60s, 70s, it would have been a lot more balanced. So, you know, I'm not saying to bring that back, because like I really enjoy going out there with strong stuff. But then there's other people, you know, where I think those balanced strains would actually be amazing. You know, especially if people are a little bit tentative about, maybe there's a history of some mental health problems in the family. That's where THC can exacerbate those. Or if they're underlying, they can catapult it to the forefront. And, you know, you could have someone experiencing psychosis who could have been completely normal. And I think that would be something I'd like to see in going forward as well with a safe regulation model, would be utilising some of the money generated from cannabis to working towards like actually being able to create a centre or something like that, where people can go, look, there is a little bit of this history in the family, but I've got X, Y, Z going on. I feel like cannabis might be beneficial, but can I do a test to figure out what strains would suit me best? And that goes back as well when I was saying about the terpenes and these smaller compounds that play a very significant role in what the strain will do. People can actually be allergic to some of those. So it's all well and good saying, oh, your cannabis is going to help you, but if there's a compound in there that you're actually allergic to, sure, it's going to probably cause you more harm than good. So it'd be developing a system where all those aspects of things can actually be teased out, and just ensuring people are getting the product that's suited best for them, I suppose.
Yeah, that's very important, I think.
Yeah.
Like finding the right team, finding the right balance.
Yeah. And then also, again, like using money for things like education, better infrastructure. Like, I mean, I'm from West Cork, man. You come down to Bandon, the roads are atrocious. And then, like, you're kind of going, now I don't drive anymore, but you're like, what are people paying road tax for?
Yeah.
You know, like where's all this money going? Like,
yeah.
You know?
Let's not get into that. No,
I know.
Because
but it was
because I can completely understand where you're coming from.
But like, to just quote, it was a couple of years ago, David McWilliams on a podcast with a very well-respected solicitor in Ireland. And they were doing like a comparative between Colorado State and Ireland. And when Colorado regulated in, it was either 2012 or 2014, and in the amount of time that had passed since the lads on the podcast a couple of years ago, they had generated $13.2 billion in turnover. Like, you know, and they had spent, I don't know, was it over 500 million on education alone? You know, that's
powerful.
Yeah, it is. And like, you know, even I was actually talking to someone recently who...
That's just on education.
That's just on education alone. Alone, like, you know?
So there's massive profits to be made.
Yeah.
Like for governments if they pass something like this. Yeah. Like,
but it's I think something that would need to be very thoughtfully drafted would be how it's going to work. Like, what's the model? And I think...
Who has the best model?
From my own experiences, I think Spain. I think Spain. But so I would like to see maybe a little bit of a hybridization of the Spanish model, which is, it's like a club. You become a member, you pay 10 or 20 euro for the year.
You can smoke cannabis legally in Spain.
Yeah. If I was to be technical, it's not technically legal, but there was this kind of a trade-off where, and I think there was an element of their constitution that kind of got it over the line. But I think the trade-off was you can grow up to 4 plants at home, or you can become a member of a club. And like, it's as normal as walking and buying a cup of coffee, man. And these places they're this on steroids. You know, comfortable furniture, couple of pool tables, maybe a console or two, depending on which one.
Is that everywhere in Spain?
Yeah. No, it was in Tenerife where I experienced this, but like I've friends in Barcelona, and they say the same
I knew
thing,
somebody in Lanzarote as well. That was in Lanzarote, and we walked into this place and just sat down and started having a smoke or whatever.
And it's amazing, man, because it's like, I suppose it's like another meeting hub. you know, and if people aren't into alcohol, you know, I mean, especially here in Ireland, after 6 o'clock in the evening, if you want to meet someone for a catch up, it's kind of the pub is the only place that's open. Maybe bar a handful of cafes that might be open till later 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So having places like this, I think it's just another place to go and meet new people, or, you know, I don't know if you've got your fucking auntie visiting and
she needs to wind down.
She's never like tried it. Well, it's legal now. It's normal, you know. Why not? You know, I know, because I know loads of people, man, who'll go to Amsterdam and they'll try it, but they come back here and they won't even. Doesn't even bother them. Like. And I admire that too.
Yeah,
I admire that too. Like, you know?
Because it's like a different environment.
Yeah.
You know, they come back here, it's different. Yeah. Tell me what else do you look at in relation to maybe plant-based medicines that are really beneficial for us as humans as well, around our mental health and maybe physically, things that can really help people develop insight into the way the mind works, or how they work, and something that can maybe help them to kind of move free from maybe emotional stuff that has been trapped in their bodies and stuff, instead of the therapeutic model where we sit and talk, which is vital and very important, which I also very, very much believe in. But I also believe in other plant-based medicines which can help us with the emotional stuff and release their, you know, help us to get a little bit of clarity into stuff. Maybe in our normal day life, without these plant-based medicines, these thoughts might come to our heads, but we don't look at them as in reality. We just leave them fly off again. But when we use the plant-based models, the medicines, it's like, it's so real that you can't just leave it go, you know. Do you have, is there anything else that you might believe that has massive benefit in helping people around these issues as well, mental health and physically?
I suppose first and foremost would be mushrooms. Mushrooms, and not just psychedelic ones or psilocybin containing ones. And again, it's only in the last couple of years I've become aware that there's a whole plethora of mushrooms that have serious attributes to health. You know, whether it be something like lion's mane, which has actually been proven to help destroy the plaque. It's called an amyloid plaque that is associated with people that have Alzheimer's. And this mushroom has been proven to destroy the plaque.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And there was a study done in Japan on it, on mice. And what they found was they obviously probably treated them with this plaque, then treated them with the mushroom for a certain period of time. But when they analysed their brains afterwards, they were 5% off being what they should be at normal state. So that's a massive reduction. Like any, and you know, and the potential to actually regenerate a brain that might be, I don't know, is Alzheimer's kind of a decay, or, you know, pardon my ignorance on it, but, you know, if someone's brain is shutting down because of something like Alzheimer's, and this mushroom has the potential to regenerate it to 5% off being what it was, that's huge, man. That's huge, yeah. But unfortunately, because it's effective, there's kind of what I feel very, very disingenuous attempts to restrict it.
Yeah.
And I think that's.
And are we speaking about big pharma, like?
I don't know. They might have a hand in it. I don't know. But it's kind of like in Europe anyway. It's kind of they're calling it like an EU directive, but there's no. There's no sensible basis on it, like, you know.
I've heard a lot about lion's mane and the benefits from it. You know, what are mushrooms?
I've used lion's mane. I've used Cordyceps, which is a positive attribute towards heart health, and the energy levels off it are insane, right?
Really?
Yeah.
As in like energy boost.
Just clear, like, and you're just
pure
a bit
clarity.
more like get up and go about you.
And what's that called?
Cordyceps. Yeah.
And is that stuff that you can't buy that over the counter, can you?
You can, and I'd say a few of the health shops would have it now.
Yeah, but would it be completely diluted?
No.
Or would it be?
No. In fairness, like I think it's becoming such a spoken about, like, the whole world of fungi. You know, that's mushrooms, molds, all that kind of world is there's so much light on it now at the moment, and how it's an integral part of like our survival. Because basically, if we don't have the mycelium, which is essentially like the roots of the mushrooms, but this interconnects everything under the ground. If we don't have this, we're fucked. You know, excuse my language, like, but we're screwed.
Yeah.
And they have found different ones. Like, there's actually a mycologist who I think his work's amazing. He's based over in America, but they done an experiment on like piles of debris that were contaminated with diesel, and they just, I don't know, like they covered one over, they treated one with something else, and they inoculated, I think it was oyster mushrooms on the last one. And after 3 weeks, the first two had gone to sludge, and the third one was actually providing mushrooms, because the mycelium was breaking down the carbon in the diesel and recycling it and using it as a food source to produce mushrooms.
Jesus.
You know, and that's just one example. Like, he also
They
discovered...
can survive anywhere, like
Yeah.
mushrooms as well.
They're phenomenal things, man. Like, you know, and he also discovered another one that helps to double a bee's lifespan and make them resistant to these little mites that were causing wing deformities. You know, that's just two examples of something, you know, really transformative within nature that they can do.
Let's talk about the Liberty Cap mushroom and how that really can give people a real clear look at themselves. If done properly again, and the right kind of facilitation and the amount and the intention that goes into the taking of them, you know, because again, they can be used for recreational use as well by different people.
Yeah.
But there's a real positive aspect as well to taking mushrooms when somebody's stuck in their life, and it can help them around maybe relationships, around the relationship between themselves or with others, or maybe what they want to do with their lives. It just kind of puts everything in perspective. Oh, what do you know about these?
The Liberty Caps.
Yeah. Are there? Is that the right name for?
Yeah,
them?
no, it is.
Yeah.
Well,
or is it just?
Oh, I can't think of the Latin name. It would be.
But the Liberty Caps.
Something. But,
Yeah.
But it's the composition of psilocybin and psilocin. There's a really high. So like kind of, as a buddy only said it, like kind of pound for pound. There's a lot more of those active compounds in the Liberty Caps than there is in other mushrooms.
Would they be the strongest mushroom?
They're up there.
Okay.
They are up there, like they're well up there.
And they're an Irish.
I was only talking to a friend yesterday. He said he'd heard recently that they're like, I don't know, is it 2 or 3 in the world of the most potent, but don't quote me on that. I don't know for definite. But they're extremely unique in the sense that, well, actually, you said they're Irish. I think that could be maybe a very big aspect of it, in the sense, you know, like they say that you're best off eating food from your locality because it's got the bacteria and things like that.
The dogs.
You know,
the dogs started going wild. Yeah, we started talking about mushrooms. And the minute they are mushrooms, they started howling.
So I don't know, is that an aspect of it? You know, and that we are such like as a like the Irish, like we're an ancient culture. You know, some people mightn't like that. Maybe some people don't even know that. I don't think, you know, but we're an ancient race of people, and these mushrooms have been around for millennia. You know, so they've had all this time to hold the memory and the energy and the goings on and different things in the land. You know, and I suppose at the end of the day, we're recycled back into the land. So that's all being regenerated back in. You know, and the Liberty Caps as well. They're really weird in the sense that they kind of grow. They grow near each other, but they grow singly, whereas other mushrooms will grow in a cluster. But in terms of their potential to change your life for the better, like, I can't put it into words.
How have they helped you in your own personal life? They've
made me take a good hard long look at myself in some situations where I've been a bit of an asshole, or I mightn't be giving my all to my relationships and things like that, and they'll humble you, like, you know, they really will. And if you think you're going to move away from something that they're trying to show you. Like, and there is a massive thing with using psychedelics and medicine. They'll give you what you need, not what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, and sometimes
And
what
they
you
don't
need is a good
sugarcoat.
kick up the arse.
And it doesn't sugarcoat.
Like,
There's no kind of just you have to do this now. But in your own time, it's like this is the information, and there's no kind of going around the long end. It's like bang, this is what you need to do. You need blah 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 blah. How what kind of environment and how should they be took in relation to the quantities? Should somebody be aware of when they're
somewhere safe, comfortable. If you're a novice, ideally having someone that you trust who will stay sober. They don't. Well, again, it each to their own, I suppose. But someone that will remain kind of in the area. But if you had a little shed out the back of your house, that you could go down there and take them, and that someone would just be able to pop in quietly every 30 minutes or whatever, just to check on you that you're okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when it does get a bit heavy, especially kind of the hour and a half, 2 hour mark where you do really peak on the experience, it can be nice to just have someone there to kind of reassure you that
you're okay.
There's solid ground below you, your soul, your consciousness is from my own perspective in a completely different realm, but the physical body is still here.
Is there kind of do you see psychedelic patterns and stuff, or is it just waves of information?
It's a bit of both, especially with the Liberty Caps. I find other mushrooms can be very much a kind of a body feeling, or it can be all visual, or then some can be really thought provoking, where you kind of lie down. You mightn't see anything with your eyes open, but you lie down, close your eyes, and it's a whole different world going on. So
would there be anything like a DMT experience?
I find the Liberty Caps can be, especially if you move up in the doses. If you kind of go 5 grams and above, it's very DMT-esque, right?
Because ayahuasca can be the same, and we've both used ayahuasca in the past for different reasons, and it's been massively impacted both of us,
like, without question.
But I have experienced some similar kind of experiences in comparison to the DMT with the ayahuasca. No, I haven't taken the mushrooms, but which I will in the future. I will take them for the same reasons that you would, or anybody else would, is to kind of to get a little bit of information for me. And a lot of people might think, but sure, fuck it, you're in recovery. Listen, I've used ayahuasca. I've used DMT. The last time I used ayahuasca was years ago. The DMT was probably longer again. It's not like a drug that I'm going back to chasing after every day or two. It's something that I use in my own life, right? And I'm not advising anybody else to use it. And that's important to mention. But I use to help me to get onto the next step of where I'm going in my journey. And that's all it is.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's it. I never push anything in anybody or tell them what to do or how to do it. But I also think it's important to give people information about what is out there.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. And because of my own sort, like, this is what I'm going to get to, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about it. If somebody is struggling with their head, and should they take mushrooms? Will it help them, or could it kind of make things worse?
It would, from my own perspective, I think it would depend on the situation.
And even the people with them.
Yeah, firstly. So what might be a potential alternative to use there would be like a microdose.
Yeah.
Where it's a very small amount. You're not really going to notice it doing anything for a couple of weeks. But all of a sudden, you're just met with this beautiful sense of calm awareness. And some people hyper aware. I said, you could call it hyper aware, but with coherence.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes you could be hyper aware of something and it actually can be overwhelming. You might freak someone out. But this is just like a really beautiful kind of just like encapsulation of like, whoa. And going back to actually what you touched on earlier, just present.
Yeah.
Just being present.
And sharpness.
Yeah.
Much more clarity.
Yeah. And then maybe utilizing something like the microdosing with a bit of talk therapy, and ideally again in a few years when maybe it's safely accessible, going on a journey with a qualified guide, you know, or maybe someone who's years of experience in facilitating plant medicine, in conjunction with a psychotherapist or someone like that. So you have like a really well-rounded team of supporters there with you as well.
I see a documentary on Netflix. Exactly, the setting was exactly as what you just said in relation to people's going through a psilocybin, a mushroom experience, where they have psychiatrists, psychologists.
Was it Magic Medicine by any chance?
It could have been. It was on.
Was
Netflix.
it done in England?
Yes.
I think it might have
There
been
was
Magic
3 or 4
Medicine,
different people done
Yeah.
it. They had different kind of experiences equally.
Yeah.
A lot of them got 6 months out of really
think that's the
free from
documentary,
depression and
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and it really helped them. Some of them experienced stuff that came back from
Childhood
deep
stuff
parts.
they buried like
Deep parts of their
really
lives
depressed,
where there was maybe some form of abuse or stuff, you know. And that's the importance of having somebody work, and the team would work with them then to integrate the information that was coming up from. Like there was one man in particular, something came up from, and it fucking really kind of hit home, or something about his father or something, and he was after getting a realization of something that was after happening back then in his life, and it kind of startled him in his life. But the team were there then to sit down with him for as long as he needed. I mean, like daily or 2 times a week or whatever, you know, because it was part of the study, and they found it very beneficial. Massively, like, and I think England are always kind of ahead of us when we're making any form of movement, big movement. And I think when that happens in the UK, it will happen here.
It's only a short matter
quickly
of time.
after.
Yeah, all going well.
You know,
yeah.
mushrooms, would the mushrooms out of everything had the biggest impact on you to help you with your own kind of state of being?
I couldn't put it down to them on their own.
Everything, like me, like the way I would talk about it, everything has a piece to give you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I suppose the one thing about the mushrooms is they're a lot more easily accessible.
Yeah.
You know, the ayahuasca was absolutely transformative. Like, I think I've sat in ceremony 5 different times. So that'd be like 5 occasions where I've gone away for 3 nights.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's when I say a lot, I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful journey, like, because I've had 2, and that was I got a lot from them. But
like, even I can understand why you're saying it's a lot, because the first, and I had smoked DMT a good few times before ever going on my first one, which would be about 4 years ago now at this stage. But again, I was young, a little bit naive. But it was amazing, you know. It was transformative. But the most recent one I done would have been late last year, and that, like,
did that hit the spot?
Yeah, like, so there was just so much nurturing.
Love,
like, and again, I do feel that I don't even feel it. Like, for me, there's no question that it is a female entity, and
100%.
I did hear it put once, and I thought it was the most apt description I've ever heard. That it was like getting a minute glimpse at Gaia's consciousness, so Mother Earth's consciousness. Like, and I that's why there's always
something that just made
undercurrent of love. As heavy as it might be, like, and I've been bait around the place.
I've heard you.
Mind, like, you know.
I've heard you.
Yeah, you know, like it has humbled me and schooled me as well. But it's always like, you're kind of going, like you said there, you know, trying to avoid maybe something that's coming up, and it's like showing you right in front of your face, and you're trying to avoid that because it's just heavy. You know, it's just heavy, and it can be physically draining too. But it's just, I'm here. There's always this, like, when you need it, there's just this whisper, like, I've got you. I got you.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And you said something about Mother Earth, Gaia. On my first experience, I've spoke about it a lot, and anybody that has listened knows the story that I felt love, unconditional love for the first time. And when you said kind of Mother Earth, I got a real sense of sadness that I never experienced before in my life. And it was like the earth's calling for a stop to the way we're destroying it. And it was the sadness that the earth was feeling, even though it loved us all and wanted us all. It was just so sad because of what we were doing to it. And it was just being drained of every nutrient and bit of goodness that was in it for man's benefits financially, for what would you call it, for our own pockets, for our own materialistic kind of fucking idolizations, things that we want in life. And it was, I just could not, I never in my whole lifetime ever experienced sadness like it. And then I often thought about it, was that the sadness that I was feeling as a young child when there was different things going on for me, coming back, and was this Mother Earth or the universe, and for me it was a female presence as well. Was she just giving me a feeling of how I was feeling as a young child, the sadness as I felt, because I blocked all that out too. I blocked all that stuff out too. And was she just showing me how I felt, the sadness?
It's
and
a
then
very interesting.
That's, I was trying to compare it to that. But then she'd come back into me and she'd fucking wrap everything around me. And there was this unconditional love, because my mind was coming back in. Like my ego was coming back in, saying, how could you be loved? You done this, you done that, you done the other. And then she'd come back and that don't matter.
I still got you there. Yeah.
That don't matter, and it was like, whoa. That was the most profound experience. I was never getting that. I was never going to get that experience sitting down with a psychologist or a psychotherapist. And there was massive healing in that for me, emotionally. Mentally and kind of psychologically, I was after learning a lot inside with the psychotherapist and psychologist and all the personal development groups here and there, and that stuff was fantastic because it gave me a great insight into how we work as human beings and how we kind of develop belief systems and all these different things. But it was that stuff that kind of just emotionally helped me to heal. And my life just started to change after that.
Well, I think, would you feel that, having felt that caliber of sadness, because I can somewhat relate to the hurt that the earth has gone through, and still continues to undergo. But for you to pose the question then, like, was it something to do with the sadness you would have, that you would have probably felt, but also suppressed as a child? Do you feel that by feeling it actually allowed you to process it?
I think so. I think I must have felt that somewhere before. I've had to,
that level of sadness. Yeah.
But it was blocked. It was thrown away. It was knocked away from my everything. My emotional kind of understanding. It was all kind of taken away when I was younger, because I had to get through the environment that I was living in, and I became introverted and I became cut off emotionally. So that was taken from me. Any kind of memory of how I felt back then was taken from me because I had to cut off. And maybe that experience gave me a little bit of a guide, or maybe insight into how I actually did feel back then. This is how sad you felt when you wanted to maybe take your own life at 6 or 7 years of age. Because you have to understand, for a child to want to do something like that in life, like, they have to feel a sadness that's unbearable. And that's how that sadness felt for me, because I cried uncontrollably when I felt that feeling, but my mind was perceiving it on that moment. Because it was like I was feeling, it was like I could feel it from the earth. It was like the earth was like a whale. I know this might seem a bit weird. You know, the way a whale cries, just sits there when it's just dying or whatever. It was like that. It was like that kind of feeling. And it was really intense. Like I was trying to fucking just bear with it, and I was sad, and then the happiness then would come in, and I'd find my 2 arms wrapped around my back, and I'd be loving myself, you know. And then the information kept coming and coming and coming, and then I was saying, okay, because I've been good in relation to the allowing the information and surrendering into it, but it was coming fast and heavy then too, and I was saying, whoa, I said, okay, I've had enough, and it stopped. It actually, I've had enough.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I kind of leaned back then, but it was powerful. The fucking experience was powerful. The second time that I done it with you, it was on the Wicklow Mountains. That was a different experience. That experience was completely different. That was like, there was a healing. That was like I was being kind of fucking, there was somebody just,
the mechanics were at work kind of thing.
They were healing a broken heart.
Yeah, whoa.
And they were just kind of working from the outside. And I told you the story last week when we were chatting about one of the shaman that were there when I came around to my turn to talk about my experience during the integration. When I was just getting into talking about it, I could see her whispering into the other shaman's ear when she was looking at me, and she said something to him. And I was like, I knew at that moment that like there was something going on for me, because she could see something going on at that moment. I knew it because I didn't see that happen with anybody else in the room, because they were just mainly focused on the move. When I see her coming to me, see how we're very noticeable beings as well, how we can pick up in body language. Yeah. I was kind of focused on that. I was looking at that. But yeah. I'm so happy I came across these things, but the amount of fucking fear that I had to face just before I even took that first cup of ayahuasca. I talked about it there the other day, but you remember we were talking about it, and it was like, yeah, I think I might do a session this year. Like, the fear just kind of consumed me, and I knew. I said, yeah, here we go. Yeah. It doesn't want, the body doesn't want you. The consciousness does not want you to go in to that place, like, because it's ego the unknown.
And it's ego stripping.
Yeah.
You know?
It peels away everything, doesn't it?
It really does. But I have to say, like, that space that they held and everything, and like that, again, that goes back to the proper facilitation aspect of it, and people who know what they're doing. Like, because it's without question one of the hardest things I've ever done, like, going on those journeys. You know, because it absolutely schools you, and it holds a big ass mirror up to you and stuff like that. And then there's the other aspect, what I find, I think more so with the ayahuasca from my own experiences, is the breaking of the old traumas that are in the lineage, that are in the family. You know, like I experienced a lot of my dad's hurts and stuff, because when he was, how was he, 23? He was in his early 20s anyway, and he ended up losing his leg in a motorbike accident. But he told me that because that was what, must have been the late 70s, early 80s, and it was on a really crappy back road. It took the ambulance, I think, 3 hours to come.
Jesus Christ.
And he still maintains that, like, if they had gotten there sooner, he probably would have kept his leg, but it was the amount of blood he lost. But I actually went through, I felt that trauma, that pain on one of my journeys, like, you know, it was mad, boy. It was mad. Like,
you weren't even born at this stage.
No. You know, like, it's nuts, man. Like, and then just, you know, there's other, I don't know much about it, but I know there's other darker kind of warped stuff on another side, on the other side of the family and stuff, and like just feeling that and the hurt that was caused, and then like just feeling that sinister element.
Yeah.
But also then feeling the hurt of the victim.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's you know what I'm talking about, but it's so
100%.
hard to describe. It's so hard to put into words. Like,
And you know that kind of stuff, it gives you a real like understanding of life afterwards, and it gives you a real
Absolutely.
sense of compassion for others and empathy as well, because I suppose it's just, you start realizing that people are conditioned into doing things that they're completely unaware of what they're even doing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that's what I've gained. That's one of the biggest gains for me, is that kind of element of, okay, people do things because they don't really know any better in life. I'm not saying that's any justification for their actions or anything like that, but what it does, it allows me to move on with my life instead of me kind of getting consumed in resent towards them for what they've done.
Which,
you know,
yeah.
So I know can move on knowing that blah blah blah. This is what they had to go through. This is the way they were conditioned. They done that, completely unconscious of how they were affecting the other human being and how it would damage them later on in their own life, and you kind of can move on because you have a better understanding. Because I know based on my own actions in the past, I wouldn't do the same things now because I didn't know any better back then, and I was just conditioned in a different way. But I would never dream of doing any of those things that I done back then. No. And that's change. And so I always have this real kind of strong belief that what people do is not who they are. It's based on what they're conditioned to do, maybe in life or the environment they were brought up in. You know, but I also believe people can change because of the way I've changed my whole fucking mentality. You know, so life is fucking a mysterious way of showing you to bring you around in a full circle. And the last 13 years of my life has been a fucking roller coaster, like. And I can't say it gets any easier. You just learn how to deal with stuff.
Yeah.
You know, stuff that was bothering me 5, 6, 7 years ago wouldn't have the same impact as it would today. But small things then might impact me, like fucking driving the car and being impatient sitting in the car and being in a rush or not giving myself enough time. You know, these small little simple things, whereas the bigger stuff then is like, so what can you do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know?
It's interesting though, like how I suppose, like with experience and then using certain compounds and stuff like that, I think it's character building, and you build a resilience about yourself because you're getting to learn and discover more aspects of you. And I suppose, like, I only learned actually recently that the frequency of authenticity vibrates higher than love. So I suppose, like, if you're actually really working on yourself and you're putting you out there, like, you know, I suppose, you become more resilient to those tougher things, but all of a sudden then you can, I suppose, the human condition, you know, you're stuck in a bit of traffic or someone pulls out,
you're fucking mad.
The
van or the car or whatever it may be. So life has a really difficult, and listen, everything is a learning. I try to look at everything now as in anything that comes up in my life as in some teaching from it in some way. Like, it doesn't matter what it may be. I always try to look at something beneficial to come from it. Whether it's whether my mind portrays it as a really negative or bad thing that has happened, or a really positive thing. You know, I just kind of go with the flow. And now I kind of tend to make decisions that are right for me instead of what is right for others all the time. You know, and there are things that I've kind of recently started acted upon now as well, and I think that's a really big thing for me, because my kind of whole persona would be based on my own conditioning and beliefs, would be the people pleaser, making sure everybody liked me, making sure everybody fucking thought I was nice and sound, and you know, but now I understand, like, that's the only person that's fucking getting hurt here is me. trying to fucking do everything to help everybody else and to make sure that everybody else is grand and happy and comfortable, whereas my needs aren't being met at all.
Giving everything away.
That has to change.
Yeah.
And that's what's changing at the moment. I've started to really kind of change my whole aspect of my routine and balance in life, around my family, around me. And it's all changed, and I feel great. Really, really good. Before we wrap it up, Ollie, I know I went on a rant there. Is there anything else that you think is very important to kind of mention today? Anything that you're doing yourself? Any kind of businesses that you're maybe involved in, or anything that you want to talk about that has potential, like to help any other people? Maybe something that we haven't spoke about already.
I suppose there's one thing, all right, and it kind of, for me, I'm blessed and privileged to have kind of learned about it and come across the information. But on a broader spectrum, in terms of things like safe access to plant medicines, good quality food, drinking water, all those kind of things, and just in working so that I suppose it could be something that could be utilised to work towards creating a nation here where everyone is actually doing all right, unless they're absolutely decided to squander it all. But just that the things are kind of in the right place, and that would be a document called Bunreacht na Héireann. Now maybe we'll have a conversation about it some other day, but I came across it about a year and a half ago through the work that a man from County Tyrone had undertaken in, I suppose, uncovering the actual real principles and merits of it. And it was written in 1937. Sorry, it was written in 1936 and enacted in 1937. But within it it's essentially Irish law for the land of Éire, as is stated in the Bunreacht. And I just feel the way there's a lot of skullduggery and corruption and things kind of very blatantly happening nowadays. And even just like, I have friends who are trying to find a house, good jobs, they can't find a house. So within this document is kind of like the foundational principles that everyone has the right to liberty, to live their life the way they want, as long as they're not harming anyone else. And that the government that is supposed to be kind of ensuring that everything is running smoothly can be held to account if they're not doing what they've said they'll do. So I suppose I feel if more people were to learn about our actual laws and principles, we could also turn this place into a very, very different country where everyone's having a good time.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like out messing, but just that people are comfortable and that they feel
just surviving.
Instead of just surviving, and it was, I remember years ago when I was going to Australia, there was a man, he was telling me about his brother living over there, and he said that in Australia they work to live, but here we live to work.
Yeah, we do too.
And I never, there was times where I mightn't have a bob in my pocket because I'd had too much of a good weekend, but I never felt the same feeling as I would here if, I might have a tenner in my pocket and I'd be nearly freaking out, oh, how am I going to do this, or how am I going to, but over there it was just different, man. It was just like, I don't know, maybe it was the sunshine, I don't know, but there was definitely something flowing more efficiently. And I just, having been abroad and coming home and speaking to friends we've all had the privilege of doing it, there's no need for things to be the way they are here, basically.
Yeah.
And I just feel if maybe, and another aspect of the Bunreacht na Héireann is it places the Irish language, which is our own indigenous language, as the top tier. So for me, that just encapsulates the power of our own tongue. And I have noticed in the last couple of years, there's a massive resurgence of people learning it. And I also think that would be fundamental in, moving this place into maybe a more affluent position as a nation and a country.
Having the Irish language being spoken more of.
Yeah. Because I'm working in a cafe there in town as well in Cork, and there's a lot of Irish speakers come in there. and like it's really like my graw for Irish has grown. Like, and I always comprehended how it worked in school and everything, but I guess just the way it was taught was never really too enticing. So my biggest drawback would be lack of vocabulary. But if you tried to sit me down now and you were explaining Spanish or French, like I would still have to learn how that language works. Whereas I understand how the Irish works. I just don't have a very broad vocabulary at the moment. But
go back to that document. What does that document actually state on it? It's
the Constitution. It's the Irish Constitution. It's the original true one, because there was a lot of messing done a couple of years later, and there was very deceitful changes made and maneuvers done to essentially kind of corporatize it, I suppose would be the word to use. So it's for the government's benefit, whereas the one in 1937 was actually written for the people. That like, but the fundamentals of it, I suppose, and I'm sorry I didn't bring it up just to be able to read the preamble, but it kind of ensures liberty, freedom, and basic human rights to every individual, no matter colour, creed, race, anything. You know, it was just, I suppose, look at it from a perspective of mankind in all its glory and ugliness and everything, but enshrining those rights that were kind of bestowed on us when we were born. You know, and it was there to protect that. Like, and
how big is the document?
It's a beautiful little book. He actually discovered one over in New York and bought it, and then since then he's gotten it printed. Like the original, everything is still there, but he's done Trojan work in the meantime, cross-referencing data and facts and everything. Like, he is his stuff watertight. And he actually worked on it. He built a website as well. It's Bunreacht. So BUNREACHT 1937.ie, and the document is on there as well in PDF form. It's an amazing read. It's actually, like, I'd encourage anyone, like, because I always, again, and this is something very new to me, like, I won't claim to be an expert on it or anything, but I suppose over the years I was always searching for maybe the silver bullet or something, which it doesn't exist, but to try and maybe right some wrongs I was seeing around me. And when I came across this, like, it hit me like a slap into the soul, man. Like, it really resonated. And don't get me wrong, it might not be the only avenue to use or the only tool to utilize. There's probably others, but for me personally, it was the one that really struck home. And I think a big part of that was because of the Irish language as well. And like, I suppose, like, not without getting too into it, there is a lot of deceit happening at the moment, and things being used to trick people, you know. And the way I look at it is, like, if someone wants to utilize something like cannabis or mushrooms and they're not causing any harm, and, you know, they've acquired it safely and everything, who is anyone else to tell you how to look after your health and well-being? You know?
Yeah,
you know?
I don't get
so
that
hopefully, man, like, maybe people that listen to this will do their bit of research and kind of go, okay, maybe there's another thing we can utilize to, and that's all I want. I want safe access and quality medicine.
And good quality medicines that are doing what I should say.
And that are derived naturally and things like that, you know. Because another thing, like I said about the mushrooms and the mycelium playing an integral role in soil health and everything, cannabis and hemp, all those things, they rebuild the soil, like, they sequester carbon. So, like, why aren't we utilizing them, like, you know, for what they can do for us, like, you know. And then whatever other positives come with that, roll with that too, like, you know.
Ollie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a lovely evening. Thanks so much.
That sounds interesting, and I might give that a look myself as well. If the wording is too big for me, I could be caught all right.
No, man, it's lovely. Like, a lot, like, some of the articles are quite lengthy.
Yeah.
But the premise of it is amazing.
It's very easy to understand.
Yeah. Like, and like, as that man up in Tyrone who's done a lot of this work would always say, he said, like, the preamble itself encapsulates what the rest of the document is about. He said everything is there in the preamble.
Even just read the preamble.
Yeah,
if somebody
just
has
read the preamble.
The focus, just to stay with something like that.
And it is, as far as I know, it is the longest running constitution in Europe. And And I think when India were going for their independence, they took aspects of it because they said it was so ahead of its time. Like, it was written in 1936, kind of brought into effect in 1937, but it just covered everything. And I don't know, but I've done a little bit of reading into the Brehon laws, and they were about fairness and equality. And like, even if someone done the worst of the worst in the rest of Europe, like, they'd probably lose their head. But here, there was an opportunity for kind of rehabilitation, but you'd be put to the bottom rung of society. And if you wanted to get back up to where you are, you'd have to work hard for it. Like,
we still have that today. That's still there today. Like,
Yeah.
And sometimes you're stopped from even getting back to where you are, even though you're working hard for it. With the Garda vetting process and all that that's in place, that stops people in their tracks, even though after might have done 5, 6, 7 years in college.
Yeah.
Then there's the aspect of the Garda vetting and what kind of criminal convictions and stuff they have, and puts a halt to everything.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. Right, Ollie, on the ball, bro.
Well, thanks so much.
Listen, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for joining us, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I know I can ramble on a little bit, but sometimes there. I think it's important just to share these experiences that I've had and you, and so people can get a better insight of what's available to them when they're ready to move on to the different stuff. And I think there's so much out there for people to get well, to learn about, to get educated about, and we just shared a lot there now as well. So
and I think like, even these kind of conversations are important,
100%.
because they break the stigma, and it's two genuine lads who
been
are on their own journeys, but
and we're not pushing anything
no,
in
exactly,
anybody. We're just talking about our own experiences and how they can benefit others who are ready for them as well. So listen, lads, thank you so much for listening. From a fantastic chat with Ollie here tonight, and I want to thank Ollie and Tony, as always, and I hope that everybody's gotten something that might help them in the next stage of their own life, and because I know everything we spoke about here has helped me in some massive kind of influential way, either through my emotional aspect or maybe the cognitive side of it, and me just understanding life a little bit more. And I just want to thank everybody for listening. Okay, Slán and good luck.